All right, we're going to start with our board agenda here, and so the first item, if you could scroll down just a bit there. First item on the agenda, I will turn over to Dr. Camille.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. Yes, this first item, you know that after each meeting we send notes to Curriculum Council. Well, it seems that when we sent notes out last month, we omitted some important information related to the calendar that one of our teacher leaders told us about. So we are asking to have these comments added to the notes from the February ECC meeting.
Board members, you okay with that? Where's everybody?
Yep.
And then Jane. Where's Jane? Oh. All right. Thank you. So as if you guys find edits or any changes to the minutes, please go ahead and include them every month to us so we can make any necessary changes. All right, moving on to our second item, I would like to, we're taking a look at grade 6 curriculum. Mr. Mulvey.
Good afternoon, everybody. You can get the next slide. We have two courses to present, the final two courses that were updated, written, and created.
Mr. Mulvey, we have a microphone on this one.
Right there.
Thank you.
For right now. Okay, so anyway, the first course is 6th grade wellness, and 6th grade wellness is a course that's going to occur every other day. It's in our Encore 2 cycle. And really what we did was we consolidated phys ed and the health curriculums when we wrote a new course around it. Currently, we're in the third year, actually in the second year of a 3-year grant that brought a curriculum called Life Skills, and Tina Forsyth was instrumental in bringing that grant to DASD, and that has to do with some things around substance abuse and refusal skills, things of that nature for the health curriculum. So we are going to incorporate that and train that. That's all grant funded as part of it. As I said before, this course is an every other day course, so it's a 90-day course. It will basically work out to 2 days of phys ed for every day of health. The good thing about this course is that the teacher for the health component of the course will be the same teacher for the phys ed component of the course. So a section of kids, 6th grade kids, they'll have phys ed in the gym or outside on A and C day, and then on E day they will be in the classroom with the same group of kids, same teacher for the health lesson. It pretty much mirrors the 9th grade wellness course setup. The main topics are physical activity, fitness, human growth and development, and substance abuse. And then lastly, I want to tell you that there are no new curricular resources that we need for this course. However, there will be capital equipment that's in the capital budget for new phys ed equipment. And also the fitness grant, which is currently being used in elementary, would be extended to the 6th grade, and I believe that's a cost of around $900. Questions about wellness? Great. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Engineering inventions. And this course is called Engineering Inventions. It was Explorations of Engineering, but we did change it to Engineering Inventions. And this is a Cycle 1 course, and that means that it's a 2-day cycle course. This would be delivered, say, on an A and a D day. This was developed with guidance from the Boston Museum of Science, Mr. Spears, myself. Took a look at engineering as elementary this year, and then the Museum of Science said, hey, wait, we have something that's a little bit more geared towards middle schoolers, and that was the Engineering Now curriculum. So we use those resources to develop our curriculum. We're going to be working with them through ASSET, which is a group that trained all the teachers at STEM in inquiry. They're going to work with our tech ed teachers for the Engineering Inventions course. The principles we're going to study, the units that we're going to study are bioengineering, construction, manufacturing, aerospace, energy, agriculture, and then there will be a 12-day unit. All those units will be 8 days long, for a 60-day course, and there's a 12-day part that will be on the Lego robotics. There are no textbooks that are associated with this course. However, there's about a $1,000 charge for a team that is going to be trained in this in May, a team of 4. And also, there's a cost for Lego Mindstorms kits for the robotics. Gavin, would you say those typically last about 5-6 years, those kits?
Yeah, that's a typical life cycle. Replacement parts are just inexpensive components that might be lost or broken. But other than that, yeah.
And so the costs associated with that are roughly around $9,000 to outfit the school, and then those Lego robots would be lasting us about 6 years. One of the interesting things is, again, with the iPads, and I know that we had those approved at last month's board meeting, is that you find free apps all the time. And one of the free apps for the iPad is the controller for the Lego Mindstorm robots, so the kids won't have to be on the computer. How do they typically control them before, Gavin?
Well, they write a program on the computer and then download that to the robot itself. I actually have one.
Okay.
I'm hold it up here. This is a kit that our elementary school kids have put together in an after-school program. And this is a processor in and of itself, but the robot is capable of interfacing with the outside environment. It has motion detectors, color sensors. It's completely programmable. And so they can learn the phases of programming, if-then loops, switches, and things like that. It's a great teaching platform for it. Very, very flexible and expandable.
So now there's an app that's free that you can put right on your iPad, and the kids can control it from their iPads for the course. So it's a pretty neat thing.
Tom, are we anticipating one of these kits or more than one?
The kits roughly run around, you get 5 kits, or 6 kits, I think, for $1,600. And so we're looking at, 2 kids can use 1 kit, is that correct?
Well, there's a discount for purchasing as a classroom pack.
Okay.
So the $9,000 would cover about 2 classrooms where the kids would be shared.
Right, and that's what I was going for, was close to 60 kids, because we would have 2 teachers and teaching
If
this.
we went that large, it might be a couple $100 over that 9,000 estimate, just so you were aware.
Okay,
Yeah, that was, I think, spec that out around 25.
okay,
2 classes of 25.
okay. Any questions?
I had a question. Oh, so we're writing the curriculum in conjunction with this group? Will we have a couple people writing the curriculum?
Yeah, there were 2 teachers who are actually over at STEM, Kelly DeVito and, who was it? Oh, Kay Lawson, I'm sorry. And they both wrote it. They used the guide from the MOS for Engineering Now. Engineering Now is a pilot program. But what our teachers did was they took the guide and they wrote a developed curriculum from it. But we are going to be working with them. They do have curricular guides that we can use, and they flesh out some of the activities that we have. Typically, it starts with an introductory lesson. I think I might have explained this back in September, was that there's a TV program that goes along with this, and they show how kids they'll present a problem. How do you make something fly given these materials, et cetera, et cetera. And so then you teach the principles of aerospace or flight, et cetera, et cetera. Give the kids materials, they work in teams, and they have to use the principles of engineering and inquiry to help design something or make it better, and then they have competitions with it, et cetera.
And then remind me, maybe Gavin can help with this. So moving on to 7th grade, is it an elective? Or where do you go with engineering? Is it an elective course, or is it part of?
7th and 8th grade engineering is a required course. So all students will have, currently in the current model, 45 contact areas. It's quarter-based. So they'll have 45 days of engineering as a 7th grader and 45 days as an 8th grader.
And then this curriculum just leads right into that curriculum, 7th grade curriculum, for the most part, the concepts.
Yeah, the concepts are, the way that the approach here is innovative, it's problem-based And so this is very, very engaging for the 6th grade students. We're going to be looking into doing some modification of the 7th and 8th grade curriculum as well this year to link in. As we back basically, the reason why Tom, I'm sure one of the many reasons is that he chose STEM teachers was to back map and what we do at STEM and what we find how successful in engineering back to 6th grade. With that philosophy, Kelly DeVito, for example, I know is also a degree and licensed mechanical engineer in addition to an accomplished teacher. So she was an excellent resource to use both in STEM and also 6th grade curriculum.
Gavin, maybe this would be the appropriate time to Mrs. Hertzman's question. At the middle level, we're using Project Leapaway as the engineering courses, and some of what we found with the teachers, to Gavin's point of adjusting the middle level curriculum to make it a little more problem-based, hands-on, and less
Try.
I was looking for yeah. So if you could just speak to that just for a minute, maybe.
Yeah, the project as you know, we're promoting the Project Leapaway course program at the high school level, which is in essence an AP level engineering course. Project Leapaway designed a curriculum for the middle level. I don't want to condemn it and say that as an afterthought, but it was based on that AP level foundation. So it is age appropriate for high school and develop math skills. Even at the Project Leapaway, the recommendation was not to use it in 6th grade, which is why we didn't put it into 6th grade. Even they were a bit critical of it in terms of its use in 7th and 8th, as we're finding that it appeals to highly academic students there, but since it's a mandatory course, it's not as broad-based or effective. We'd like to modify it to make it more problem-based and appealing for that age group.
Are there any questions from the board? Or how about any of the curriculum leaders or our other guests here? All right, we can move this forward. Board members, yes? And then, Mr. Mulvey, the titles changed then, right, to
Engineering adventures.
okay, so we can change. We'll change that for our vote, and you'll change that on the document as well.
Please, yeah, we will.
I will take care of it.
Thank you. Okay, now to our favorite subject, the calendar. And I'm turning that over to Dr. Whistling.
So I did have a conversation with the groundhog, and I think this is over. Just so you know, I think it's over. You don't think so? So let's take a look. I don't know, Tony, can we make that a little larger up there? This is the current calendar, right? So the first thing we're looking at, and I'd like to get the board to look at this, but hopefully it'll be all a moot point because it's over. I don't know if we could do one more time. We can go larger, Tony. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so let's go down to April. Scroll down a little bit. Maybe we'll go down to the end. Go right down to the end. Put April right there. Stop. Good. Okay, so you can see April. You can see what Jen has highlighted there. What I would like to ask the board to just kind of ratify, because we've already told everybody we were going to head this way, is that we want to make sure that we end school this year on June 19th. We want to solidify that end date for students, and we want to solidify June 20th as the end date for our staff, our faculty. We do not want to go any further than that, and to do that, we would say that any day that we would have from this point forward, we would start cutting into the spring break. So if for next week another storm comes in and the groundhog and I are wrong, then we would take Thursday, which is the 17th of April. And if another storm comes in or we're off for 2 days, we would take Monday. And then if another storm comes in, we would take Friday. And if another storm comes in, we're just going to cry. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to cry. So that's my proposal, and I just move that through.
Board members, you okay with putting this on the agenda?
We already did.
I guess that means yes. We'll put it
Okay,
on
all
the
right.
agenda. All right.
Great, and now the next one is the next calendar, and that's for next year. So we say, what did we learn this year, and what should we do differently next year? Start school in July, or make sure we get it finished before the PSSA and the IB and the AP and the Keystones and every other darn thing now that we're being evaluated on is over. Let's look at August, and you'll see the first change. You'll see a nice, clean first week of school. So I do hear from some of our board members sometimes, and they say, there's never a full week of school. Well, we're going to start school on August the 25th and go for that full week. And of course, we're off on Labor Day, so the next time it gives us a nice, next week we have a 4-day week. Then we have a holiday, the end of September. I believe, Jen, is it Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, end of September. Okay, you say, where do we put that day? Well, just glance over to April. In the beginning of April, a few years ago, we went to our parent groups and we said, what do you think of us cutting back on the spring break? Because that was the year, my God, we thought we were going to die. We had 5 snow days. But we didn't get out until the 23rd of June. We weren't supposed to be out until the 16th of June, regularly that year, because we had taken the whole week off and for other reasons. So then that particular year, which was 2010, we didn't get out until the 23rd, and that was pretty late. So people said, what can we do to mitigate that? So we tried to cut into the Easter break. So then you're saying to me, gee, Larry, why would you add to the Easter break then? Well, so now what we learned is, in this brave new world that we're in, with teacher evaluations and principal evaluations, and for our folks in the audience, if you don't know this, 50% of all of our teacher evaluations are based on data, on testing, testing, PSSA testing. 50%. And if it's not PSSA testing, it's other testing that the district would be looking at. So if you're a high school teacher, it would be IB, AP, Keystone, and the same with all the principals. Every principal evaluation, half of it now state mandated, is based on testing. So what have we learned? Well, what I've learned as a school leader is that we have got to make up days before we give PSSA, Keystone, IB, and AP tests. Because the days that we lose prior to giving those tests become very important days for teachers and administrators. So my proposal, and I'm terribly saddened by this, and I know a lot of people are because we did look at the calendar, or we did do a survey. We surveyed our teachers and we surveyed our parents, and many people responded. And not everybody certainly wants to lose spring break. But it's going to be proposed. So let's look up in January, and we are going to keep the Martin Luther King Day. We are not proposing that to be a snow makeup day. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through the makeup days for you. So everybody in the room will be off on Martin Luther King Day. Now, if we learn from this year and years past, we get a lot of snow the 12th of January through the 27th of February, at least we did this year. So if we do get snow, we will move the President's Day break. So you see that blue square on the 13th of February? Well, that is an in-service day in a perfect world. That's professional development day in a perfect world. And then everybody's off on the red day. But in an imperfect world, that'll be our first snow makeup day, just like we did this year. So the kids will come to school that Friday, and the teachers will come to school on President's Day, just like we did this year. Plays havoc with Jen and Linda in trying to redirect professional development, and we understand that, but it's the only day that, it's our last district professional development day, the days that we control. It's our last day. We do that purposefully. We front load professional development, but we do need that day in the middle for data and for other reasons and teaching purposes. So that's the first snow makeup. So scroll down a little bit, Tony, to May. And the second snow makeup then becomes May 22nd. See that Friday? So we typically had taken that, in a perfect world, we would make a very long break and then we would end school for 2 weeks, but a nice 4-day break. So that becomes our second snow makeup day. And what we're trying to do by making that the second snow makeup day is not get into the Easter break. So if we have a third snow day, now you got to go up to April. And we're now proposing to take that Wednesday. That's the day we added. So that would be the first day we would take. Because I'm going to hedge my bets in the future and say, unless it's a perfect year, we'll get a nice long spring break. But 90% of the years that we have, we'll probably be off that Wednesday. And we usually have about 3 days. So in a typical year, we'd be off on that President's Day. We'd be working on President's Day. We'd be certainly working on that May Day. And we'd be working on that first day of spring break, Wednesday. So here's the bad news. The rest of the makeup days are also during break. And the reason I moved that day to that Wednesday, I'll tell you in a second. I think the next day is Monday and the following day is Thursday. So the only thing that we'll guarantee is a 3-day break. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's what we'll guarantee. We won't take the Friday before spring break, Easter, that day. So we have built in this calendar 5 snow days. And the days are, for the most part, except for that May Day, obviously, except for the May Day, the days are built in prior to those critical evaluative pieces, the exam days. After that, if we're in a year like this year where we miss 7 or 8 days, we're at the end of the year. Nothing more we can do. But as you can see, next year, the latest we would be out, even in the worst possible years, would be the 12th of June. I mean, if we had 10 days off, ladies and gentlemen, in the worst possible years, next year's calendar, we'd be out on the 11th or 12th of June. That's pretty good. And it doesn't get us into worrying about the 23rd and 24th and then July 1st. So with apologies, because this is not the way I would want it in a perfect world either. But you know what, guys? I think it's best for kids. And I got to tell you one more thing. As the educational leader of the district, I think it's best for all of our teachers. I think it's the best thing for our staff now in this world that we live in. So that's what I'm proposing, and I'm going to ask the board for their opinions, but turn over to Barb, and to vote on this coming up in March.
Comments? Mrs. Simonelli?
Thank you for all the work on the calendar.
Thanks,
It's
Suzanne.
been a big challenging effort. And I think you're right, because we don't have a lot of choices about when we make the days.
Do you remember that?
Turn this one on. The only question I have is, why don't we have graduation dates?
Well, you know, that's a good, I'm sorry, the question was, why do we have graduation dates? I didn't know, Jen, if you take that, I thought we were told maybe not to put them on. I don't know, you tell me. Go ahead.
I think this is working. Okay, we did have draft dates on there, but our understanding was there was some discussion about what graduation could look like at all 3 buildings
Right.
and the days that might happen. And we didn't want to put something out there that might get changed later, especially because families plan on this. So we wanted to have a more solid date before we put anything on there.
Yeah, and you know, I got to tell you, Suzanne, I'm all for putting graduation dates out. I know this year we're going to get burned a little bit because of subsidies. Everybody in the room knows we have our seniors graduating 10 days before our regular kids. And people say to me, Larry, what's the outcome of that? Well, we lose state subsidy for the seniors. But there are ways we can make that up, and Paul and Kurt and Art are working on some ways, and we're counting every day we can. That's where you hear You read in the newspaper, people are counting hours, and people are doing, it's for the seniors. And just to be clear for everybody in the room, because there are old wives' tales out there, you've got to go to school 180 days. There's no way around that, ladies and gentlemen. The rest is like an urban legend, like, people harvest your organs if you're, it's like an urban legend. Don't believe it. Have got to, unless you're beyond June 30th, you've got to go to school 180 days. And it doesn't matter if the president calls a state of emergency, let alone the governor. None of that matters, ladies and gentlemen. You have to go to school 180 days, unless you're butted up against June 30th. Then the state will exonerate you. But nobody's up to June 30th. So anyway, Suzanne, if you want to put them in, we can.
Well, I just want to know why, A, why we weren't doing it, and then B, if you're waiting for some reason, when are we going to discuss what it takes to get them there?
I think that they will be added to the calendar. It's just a matter of waiting for, there was conversation about do you do graduation for all 3 schools in one day, and I think you were meeting with high school principals and discussing that for next year. So hopefully in the next month or 2, you'll know. You'll come with a proposal.
All right, that sounds good. I know parents, that was the one question I did see repeatedly from parents. How comfortable are with graduation dates on this calendar when we've had them the last couple of years?
But I don't know, Jane and Barbara, and by the way, all of our board members, maybe you do want to discuss this, because I am hearing from some board members, as a matter of fact, I got an email named to be not mentioned, of their disdain because we're losing subsidy and that we should set graduation like April 1st. So you guys might need to talk, Jane, I don't know.
Well, actually, I'm of the opinion that you need to meet with your principals, and I need a recommendation of what dates you're even considering. But you're right, that is a larger discussion to be had, that just as you've come up with ways to make up snow days, we need to consider, if we're going to set the dates, how are we going to make up some of the subsidy that we're losing. And I know you're working on it now, but we're backpedaling. If there's a plan in place ahead of time, I mean, we may have it all worked out this year, it'll be easy to roll over into another year. But that is a question that some board members have asked. But I think it's premature. So you meet with the principals and come up with, a proposal. It's anyone's.
But Larry, you and I already have had a discussion about the graduations all in one day. I got the impression that was much more problematic than.
And it might very well be, but I think that it's not just a discussion, and it's got to be a general discussion among a lot of people, not.
Right. We'll come back soon. I think Paul Kirkland, we meet next week. I think it's one of our last meetings. Next week after, soon. It's coming up.
Week after.
Yeah, and we'll come back with a proposal, and then from there you guys can discuss. But yes, from a preliminary standpoint, we have talked about it, and we do see more problems than things that could be easy about doing a single graduation in Downingtown, because we don't have the venues. We do have an example of where a school district does this, not North Penn, but Central Bucks does this, at Ray's district. But they have the venues to do it, and we don't. So we do, you're right, Suzanne, it will probably not be a single graduation, but we'll come back with a definitive plan, and then the board can discuss whether we want to set graduation.
We have this before April.
We will. We will.
Thank you.
Before we leave the calendar, I believe we wanted to talk about the district holidays versus national holidays that we meet at Jen.
I'll let Jen take that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McNeil. Tony, would you mind bringing up the local district holidays? We are required by PDE to set 5 local district holidays. And we are supposed to have that board approved each year, and we felt like a good way to make sure that happens every year is to just make them a part of the calendar. So typically we have, in the past, used President's Day as one of the holidays, and then spring break as the other holidays. The nice thing about declaring these holidays officially is that doesn't mean that we must take them, so if we need them for weather emergency days, that's fine. We are allowed to take them. So just going with what we've done in the past, we made actually Martin Luther King Jr. Day the first of those holidays, and then we had the 4 days of spring break as the remaining 4 of the 5 required district local holidays that we are declaring to the state. It's really more of an official thing. We have it written down, we get it board approved, and if we need them for weather emergency, we use them. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, or any comments from, on the calendar from anybody in the room? All right, board members, we can move this forward. Thank you. Put the agenda back up, and now we are moving on to the next item. It's a request for 2 professional staff members for next year to address the Keystone exams and those students. So Dr. McNeil?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Fitzsimmons. So everyone is aware by this time that the state has imposed a requirement of proficiency at the minimum on 3 Keystone exams. And that graduation requirement impacts currently the class of 2017, which are our current 9th graders. Those students will be taking, if they haven't already taken 1 Keystone, many middle school students take Algebra 1 at the middle level, but if they haven't, those 9th graders will take that test in the spring. They will also take biology, some of them may take biology next year. So right now we're in a transition phase where the children who have a graduation requirement are moving through our system. So we need to be proactive. Up to this point, we feel as though, because of the way the state has imposed requirements on us, we've had to be reactive. So when looking at what we might need to be dealing with coming through the system, we're thinking that it is incumbent upon us to provide remedial instruction, support for students on whom there is a graduation requirement to pass the Keystones. So the high school principals and I met, and Paul and Kurt both have a plan for using staff, this additional staff whom they will share between the buildings, to provide that remedial instruction in Algebra 1 and biology. So you're probably thinking, well, how do you know how many students will not be proficient on the Keystone exams? At this point, we're using current data of students to make a projection. So we're not totally sure, of course, because we don't have a crystal ball, which students will not be proficient in the spring. But we have some idea of the students who did not score proficient last spring who did take Algebra 1. So the principals have some data that we're using to project the need for this staff, as well as the way that students will have this remedial instruction. You know that we have provided after-school remediation for students who are currently 10th grade, 11th grade, but we feel that the in-school remediation is our obligation for students who have this as a graduation requirement. So, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Barker, maybe you could just share how the students will receive the remediation, the number of times per cycle, and what that looks like in terms of what students might miss, and then the data that we use to come up with this notion of 1 staff shared between 2 high schools.
Okay, to start off with, the data we used last year's data, and 55% of the students enrolled in Algebra 1 were not proficient after taking the Keystone exam. we implemented a new, not a new algebra course, but we changed algebra 1 to 9 times a cycle. We anticipate that will reduce the number of students who do not achieve proficiency. So we're projecting about 40% of our students enrolled in Algebra 1 to not be proficient. What that looks like is about 70 students at both East and West. Okay? As far as, there are some students who were not proficient will be in Algebra 2, and Algebra 2 will take care of their remediation needs because Algebra 2 inherently builds on Algebra 1, and they will receive the skill remediation within that class.
And there is some sentiment, is there not, principals, that the Keystone exam is heavy in Algebra 2 concepts?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I guess a couple of things. Do we have the students that were not proficient take the exam again?
We do in December.
And do we know how they did in December?
We just got that back last night from Kelly. She sent those to us.
And is it encouraging, or are they still,
I can, I'm sorry.
I don't need numbers, I'm just in general. Is it not encouraging?
We have the numbers, but the piece with that is that they haven't had the benefit of the 9 times out of 6 instruction that these kids that are coming through are going to be had all year prior to taking the test in the spring. So these kids are considered, they've had regular instruction 6 out of 6. Maybe they're in geometry, but they haven't had the benefit of that adjustment yet. So it's not really apples to apples, but the numbers coming back through both of them from them.
Yeah, Jane, we can, in algebra, it's about a third of the students who took the Keystone again in December were proficient. In biology, it's about, I would say the average is about a quarter of the
Did they have
students.
remediation?
Some of the students were given the option to come after school for remediation or to do remediation online, because the state says that in order to retake the Keystone, you have to receive some type of remediation. So we have not had the opportunity to attach the results to the students who were in our after-school remediation program. We got these last night. Jill has been working very hard on that, and we're getting that. I'm sure the good Mr. Farrell is doing the same for West.
Do you know what your after-school remediation costs have been?
What was
Yes,
the question?
the after-school remediation costs.
I don't have them at my fingertips, but I can get that.
Because my expectation is if you're going to hire 2 teachers, you're not going to have the after-school remediation.
Well, we wanted to continue the after-school remediation for the students for whom it is not a graduation requirement. So that would be the current 10th graders who would be 11th graders next year. Because that score still impacts the school's performance profile, even though it doesn't impact the student's graduation. And
Well, I guess before you continue it, or if you're going to continue it, I'd be curious as to how many students are actually taking advantage of it. Because I know it's to our benefit, however, the students aren't voluntarily going and taking to improve their scores.
well, we can find the number of students and the teachers.
It was well attended, with the exception, the last session, the attendance dropped off, but all the previous sessions were well attended.
And then in prior years, we've spent funds on having teachers come in when we had the PSSA. We had retired teachers coming in and such. Correct?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I remember that. Well,
Again, funds that have been expended in the past. I'm just trying to,
They were
See the
proctors,
problem.
right? PSSA proctors, and we used them.
in the past, what we did was we took students out of the special ed subgroup, and we set up times during the school day and pulled them from their elective area classes and put them through a prescribed PSSA prep program, and that was taught by retired teachers, and I think that's what you're
Yeah.
talking about, Jane? Yeah.
you don't know what we spent on that either.
I don't.
Colleen?
What about literature? No need for remediation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
That'll be next year. This year's class, this freshman class, is the first class that is being held to the graduation. So next year, when they are taking 10th grade, we'll have to put that in place for the following.
But what I will share is that our literature numbers are dramatically lower than bio and algebra 1.
In a good way.
In a good way, meaning we have more, meaning we have significantly more students who are proficient. And the reality, many of the students who aren't proficient are in our remedial reading classes and are receiving some direct instruction.
Mrs. Seminelli?
Okay, I'm going to be optimistic and think that the class this year who's had the benefit of more Algebra 1 is going to do better. What happens with this teacher if we don't happen to need them for the remediation, or we don't have to need as much remediation as we're anticipating? What do you do with that teacher?
What I would say is, we do have, I had a suggestion from the floor. That's great.
Yes, we do.
That's wonderful. Suzanne, honestly, I think by the time we wouldn't need them anymore, we would certainly have a retirement on the staff in which that math teacher could then fill that slot.
And if you look at the second page, we're going to talk about credit recovery program. So there might be some opportunities. There could be some other opportunities. I did have a question too. Would this be built into their schedule? It'd be during the day, it would not be after school?
Yes. It's going to be, it'll have to be built into their schedule. It's going to have to be a piece that, since the state is mandating that they have to have this to graduate, we're going to need to say, listen, this is, your son or daughter isn't going to graduate, we have to put this into their schedule in order to make sure that we've done everything we can to put them in the best position to be successful.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone in the room? Mrs. Craney?
Are the numbers about equal of kids who need their biology remediation as algebra? What I'm getting at is maybe it would be wise to try to get people who are duly certified so they can switch if the numbers are imbalanced. You know what I mean?
And that's a great suggestion, because the following year, we're going to have even greater needs in biology, because next year, all ninth graders will take biology, and that's not been the case previously. So we're going to have a greater need in bio.
Are there any other questions from anybody in the room? Okay, board members, can we move this forward? Yes, all right, we'll move that forward. Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is looking at some research materials. I think it's the Read 180, Read Math 180 and System 44, middle school level. Dr. Sir?
Good afternoon. I'm going to introduce Nick Indeglio, the principal at Downtown County Middle School, and also Dr. Christine Bryan. Many of you probably don't know Christine. She is our supervisor of special education at all middle schools, and next year the 6th grade center. So if you aren't in those buildings, you might not recognize her. So Christine, can you come up? And I'm going to introduce them because they did, although we all met, they did a lot of the hard work on this presentation, so I want them to have the credit. We are asking for the board's approval for a proposal to extend or expand our Read 180 program, our scholastic programs. Currently, they will do a presentation on Read 180, but as you saw, there is also an inclusion of Math 180 for the 6th grade center. We currently have that in all middle schools, 6 through 8. So that's not a new program, but it will be new to the 6th grade center, so that's included in the price in the proposal. But we're here to talk mostly about Read 180. Read 180 is a research-based reading intervention program. And we started it here in Downingtown before I got here at the high schools, and found a lot of student progress and achievement. We presented that to the board 2 years in a row to share our findings after implementation. And then the board was gracious enough to allow us to purchase it for our elementary level, because our teachers were using the Hartford series, which was the same series that the students failed in the first place. And hearing officers had ruled against us on 2 occasions for that specific reason. So we have just started to implement Read 180 at the elementary level. So now we have Read 180 and Systems 44, which is the phonics piece of the program, at the elementary level and the high school level. So we're hoping, with board approval, that we can extend that so we have it at the middle level and have the whole continuum from elementary to high school. I'm going to let Nick give you a little preview of the program with a video.
Before we get into the hard facts and the statistics and all the data, it's always good to see a little bit of the program in action and students who are actually using the program. So we're just going to take a couple minutes to show you this video, which is an overview of how the program works with some kids who have been in the program. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, this gives you that brief overview.
These are not our kids, though.
No.
Hi there, I'm Ty. Welcome to Read 180, a program that's going to turn your life around. Now let me just show you how that's going to happen. Now usually you would only hear me in the software, but today I'm going to tell you about the whole program, not just the computers. Now you're here because like these kids, you want to be a better reader, and we know Read 180 can help. In these classrooms, there were lots of students who couldn't read or were struggling, but are now successful readers.
I felt really stupid. I was studying for one. I know the words, I couldn't get it out. My friends make fun of me because I know how to pronounce the words and it come out funny. It's hard, really hard.
I was really quiet. Whenever my teacher really wanted to read, I had slumped down in my chair. I didn't want her to call on me.
I was getting real bad grades. I wasn't really paying attention studying. I was depressed.
It was hard to understand what they were talking about because I stumbled over the words. I made me nervous and embarrassed. Because the people that were like, oh, yeah.
When I was first put into the Read 180 program, I felt happy because I was around people that could help me.
The thing that I like most about reading and Read 180 is that it helps me with my exams and it helps me through the school year. This program has changed me by improving my reading grades and helping me understand words or other things. I've been reading more books now, and it helps me with my other classes. Read 180 has helped me build up my confidence to read out loud in front of the class.
In addition to students learning to read, their test scores have improved, and so have they. That's right. Now that they are readers, they do feel better about themselves. So how will Read 180 make this success happen for you? Well, first we're going to make this interesting. Tons of cool books to read, lots of computer activities, hot videos, and a great interactive book where you can read, write, and react. And your teacher will help you through it, but you're the one who's going to make it happen by working at it. And here's what you'll be doing. At the start of your Read 180 class, after a whole group lesson where you work with your teacher and use your art books, you'll either go to a reading area, work in a small group with your teacher, or go to the computers. Let's say that we're in the group that's working on the computer first. You'll see a video about practically everything from dinosaurs to dancers, defining sports and doling and rolling out dollars. Then you'll read along with a passage about the video, and then you can read the passage yourself and learn new words in the passage.
Capture.
In one of the activities, you'll record the new word and match a recording to the word. In the spelling zone, you'll get to practice your spelling, and we'll give you feedback every step of the way. You'll also practice new words that are in the passage. And before you know it, you're ready for the success zone.
Alexander Nikita is an ordinary teenager.
I'm sure you know that being a successful reader takes more than working at the computer. To be a better reader, you teach a read books. So if you started on the computer, you might move next to the independent reading area, which is full of books. And we have books for you. You'll have crates filled with paperback and audiobooks. So pull up a chair or put on your headphones and get ready to read. Here are just a few of the paperbacks and some of the audiobooks. After 20 minutes, it's time to move on to the next station. If you have been on the computer and in the reading area, You'll then move to a small group where you might do some reading and writing activities with your teacher in your art. When you've been to all 3 stations, it's time for the whole class to get back together. And then there is always a little wrap-up time. Looks like fun, right? Well, it sure can be. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Well, it's not. Let's be honest. You're going to work hard. But if you stick with it, you'll become a better reader, and you will read and learn. If you don't believe it, just listen to some of these students who used to have a hard time reading.
In school, my grades were gone up. I've been doing better. I've been focusing more. I pay attention more to all my schoolwork and how important reading is and can help you.
You really told me that keep my grades up, get ready for high school, college, and everything. When I grow up, I want to graduate from college and be an artist. I want to start business when I was 20.
After I graduate, I'm going to go to stay at Boston University. I want to be a teacher that way I can make a difference in somebody's life.
I'm going to study pre-law because I want to be an attorney.
I want to go to Lamar, major in kinesiology for minor marketing. I can't wait. I've been 13 years, kid.
So that's the story here. Read 180 is all yours. Use it to help you become a success, and you're going to turn your life around. So look, I'm going to head back over to the computer and get ready for when you log on. Good luck, good reading, and I'll see you in the software.
Just a couple things to point out. One of the nice pieces about this program is that it's not all software-based. Teachers are interacting with their students, they're delivering instruction. The part when the students are on the computer is individualized to their skill deficits, which is extremely important. Another thing, you see the price tag up there, that's basically a one-time cost. The annual renewal, which is the tech plan, is I just got the quote, is $29.50 per building. And the consumable techs stay with the child for the entire time in the program, but those will be bought out of building budgets. Another thing that I really wanted to mention was when we go to a hearing and we look at research-based programs that we have to defend, we often turn to What Works Clearinghouse because it's an organization that provides research on programs, actual research with control groups. And when you look up Read 180, the Scholastic program, the effect size is medium to large, which is pretty rare. They're usually small or none at all. So it is something that we can take to a hearing officer if we have to defend it. But I'm going to have Christine get up and present her slideshow, which will show you some of the successes that we have seen already here in Downingtown.
Okay. All right, some of this is going to repeat a little bit, so I won't worry with all the extras that we've already been talking about. But the program prepares the struggling readers for college readiness, so in career readiness. What's this program proven to do? Not just in Downingtown area school district, but what's proven to do is the performance of state assessment results are going up, the reducing dropout rate, achieving for various backgrounds, including the ELL background and kids who are receiving special education services, and an increase in teacher retention. All right, so there's 2 parts of the Common Core that at least relates to it. The one is with the new state standards, we have to make sure the complexity of the text is continuously getting more and more difficult with students as they increase their reading levels. And that's what this program makes sure it does. It doesn't just feed them into a pigeonhole age group or grade level group. It continues to get more and more complex as the student gains strides in the reading program. And the other is that we're finding that the questions are more rigorous on the tests, and this program directly gets the kids ready for those state assessments where the questions are more rigorous and it's more higher order thinking skills are necessary. The video kind of touched on this, but the great thing about this program is it meets needs of various learners. So you start off with a whole group instruction, so the whole class is together as a group. And then you have this small group rotation, and it could be them working independently, reading independently, or could have them working with the software that we have in place, or it could be that they're working within a small group with kids in the classroom that are working at the same level as them, and then they'll come back together and do a whole group wrap-up instruction. So it's really nice that this meets so many different types of learners. All right, so independence. We want to make sure, with especially kids with all these needs, that we're trying to develop independence with them, and this program does provide that opportunity. Given those rotations, we have that the students are, sitting with the smaller groups, and that's great and all, but then they get that independent self-monitoring, and they're able to see their growth, and hopefully that will make them more intrinsically motivated to work harder at this and try to practice more. Okay, so why is this so unique? We have tons of programs out there. Why choose this program? And I know Dr. Sir touched on a few of these, and so did the video that we were watching. But the Clearinghouse goes without saying it does show that this is proven to show results for students. Professional development is key too. If a teacher or someone else wants to pick up this program, it's continuously supporting teachers, and the professional development is right there all the time from the website, so it's easily accessible. What's really neat about this program also is we have family portals, so parents can get in and they can see the growth of their students and their children and see the progress monitoring, and they can share that with their students. And then the teachers also have getting constantly getting feedbacks on how well their students are doing in class. We also have those apps, and especially with the 6th grade center with the iPads, this is going to be huge for them. Right now, currently, Read 180 has an app that the kids can access on their iPad. There is for Systems 44, I know we're not here to really go into that too deeply, but Systems 44 is supposedly predicting an app coming out in the fall, and then Math 180 as well. So that would be great for the kids to be able to use that to access education. Another great thing about this program is you always see programs where it's geared towards elementary, middle, or maybe even just secondary. This program can be started in the elementary school and it's continuing all the way through high school. So we can actually feed through the different grade levels, and we can utilize this program with all the students as opposed to just one specific grade level or building. The different models of implementation, there's so many different, it's very flexible. We have a lot of students that could either be in a 90-minute block program, a 45-minute block program. We could do a blended model where it's the Systems 44 leads into Read 180 in case they have that decoding and fluency skills that we need to work on. The program is so flexible that it can really meet the needs of the individual children and students. The proven results, we not only have that from Downtown Area School District, but Scholastic as well. And we'll show that in a second. So mid-year gains. So I want to mention that the gains, the data we're going to see right now is from mid-year, so it's not as of today. And we've seen some actual growth since then, but we're going to focus on just since it started in September to now. The one I want you to focus in on is the indicators of success, because I think that's the hugest part here in this slideshow, or in this slide. The 38% of students have shown at least a 2-year growth, okay? And out of those, 1-year growth. And out of those 38%, 11% of those have shown a growth of at least a year. And that we've only implemented this for a few months now. So that's pretty huge. Okay, so if you look at this, these are our superstars. These are just individual students that were chosen. And you'll see that the majority of them come from the high school. Right now, we're implementing this currently in the elementary school setting and also in the high school setting. That's why we want to feed this into the 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade levels as well. But we have a student who started this program, and since then, just to mid-year, 3.9 years of growth is reading level. So, and these are, like I said, these are top 10 superstars right now. You look over all the way to the right as the approximate years of growth. This is with implementation, what we've seen, like a percentage of gains. So for instance, Euclid Hills, right now it says 2 students. 3 students would actually be the more current data. And almost if you go across the board, every one of these schools has more students that are receiving this program as opposed to what's on there right now. But you can, that would be like a 50% gain average for the students who are receiving the program. So these are the gains that we've seen with the students within that program in those buildings. This slide and the next slide kind of coincide. This one's just a breakdown, but I wanted to actually use the next slide to go into detail. So if you look at this, this is the fall results. When they mean by fall is when we first started the program, the pre-testing. And then the current SRI results that we have up there, that would be the mid-year when we got the data from. So if you look over there, this is just a little easier, I think, than the other slide. You have 57 kids who are below basic. And as of mid-year, we now have only 44 that are scoring below basic. Same thing for basic, you have 92. Now we're at 85, or not now, but when we took the data. And proficient 22, and tremendously now we're at 42. So the gains are definitely there, and that was just with a few months of results. So if you can imagine what we're going to see at the end of the school year given this program, it should be pretty massive. The progression is just slowly moving over to the right. And of course, we're looking for that proficient score to continue to rise and the below basic to decrease. Okay. All right, so that's everything.
Questions?
I was just curious, it looks like 5 kids went down from basic to below basic and 1 from proficient to basic. What do you do for those students who are going down?
Those kids get flagged. One of the nice things about them, be a comedy kid right there. One of the nice things in the system, it's called the Scholastic Academic Manager, which the teacher and administrators in the building have access to at all times. Kids are flagged with an intervention flag when they start dipping or dropping or not making a lot of gains. So the program itself actually targets those kids for you before they drop too low. So guarantee that every one of those kids, whatever the number is, 2 or 3 that drop, that actually becomes a targeted kid. And then the program itself makes recommendations. There's ideas within the teacher manual on how to address those specific areas where they've dropped.
Do you foresee perhaps this isn't the best for those students, that you might try a different program?
Well, there's all different ways you can remediate. You can try different strategies. They might need a 90-minute block rather than a 45-minute block, depending on how much time is in their schedule. And so you try different things before you look again to say, maybe this isn't the right program. We're hoping, we've not taken a student out because of that yet.
And then you talked about it's $182,000 is a one-time cost, but then it's $29,000 per building per year.
$2,900.
Oh, $2,900. Okay, I like that better. Is there, just from a budgetary standpoint, any chance there's any money left over in this year's budget?
Actually, I've worked with Mr. Fazio, and he's projecting that we can take out the entire amount out of this year's budget.
So that it's not going to impact us?
Correct.
That's 2 good answers, thank you. 2 for 2. And is this just for special ed students, or have you used it? Okay. Would you consider using it for other students?
I think that would be a discussion that we certainly can have with the building principal, sure. Thank you.
I have a question. The Math 180 program, is that in elementary or high school?
6th grade and up. It's a math intervention program.
This is the first time we use
It is. This year is the first time we've used math.
And we're only going to use it in the 6th grade center this next year?
We currently already have it at the middle school and high school, but because the 6th grade center is another building, we have to purchase the licenses for another building.
All right, and then you said that you had the System 44 in elementary and high school, but you're not recommending it for the middle school?
No, we are. The System 44 is the phonics pro part of the program. We already have Systems 44 at the middle schools, but we need to
have it in the middle schools.
Yes. We don't have the Read 180 program at the middle schools.
Have you considered the math component for the elementary schools?
It's only grade 6 and up.
Oh, it's only 4, 6, and up.
Yes.
Can I make that one point on Math 180?
Sure.
The thrust and the focus of Math 180 is algebra readiness. The minimum amount of time to move through the Math 180 program is 1.5 years. That's if you are a fast mover. It could take up to 2 years to complete, it could take 2.5 years to complete, it could take 3 years to complete. However, at the conclusion of the Math 180 program, the student is algebra ready. They're ready to go into an algebra class. So the earlier we start them, if we start them by 6th grade, we're going to get them into Algebra 1 faster and then have more opportunity PSSA and Keystone-wise. So.
Any other questions? All right, board, can we move this forward? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then our field trips. Saxa.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. We do have several field trips on our schedule today, 2 of which are Best Buddies trips. This is, I don't know if Andy Hoffert's in the room. Has anything? There he is. And Andy can answer any questions. I don't know if you want to just... Best Buddies is a club that runs currently at East.
Yeah, it's an extracurricular club whose the chapter is just open with Belport Life Skills teacher at East and some students that it pairs regular ed students with students with special needs in kind of a friendship, social relationship. We do outside activities outside of the school day. They also have some time during the school day that they meet together. And the idea here is there's a kind of a regional event that's going on during the school day that our students, both our buddies and their buddies, I don't know what the actual term is, but all the pairs of students who do going for the I guess it's a talent show event at another school that they're hosting.
It is, thank you. Thanks. And the other one is a Saturday trip. We also have a national, thank you, Mr. Hopper. We also have a national aquarium trip for grades 9 through 12, the ecology classes, as well as an after-school trip for our art club to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, including dinner. And then the final of the curricular trips is the Smithsonian and Washington, D.C. museum trips for grades 9 through 12 as well. And then the remainder of the trips are sort of these transition trips that we've been taking that weren't necessarily appearing on the bank. So typically we have our 5th graders visit 6th grade, and we have our 8th graders visit 9th grade, or we have our 8th graders visit STEM, or we have, so we just want to make sure that all of those transition trips do appear in the bank, and that it will be easier each year to just fill out the banked application form so we know that they're being taken.
Mrs. Simonelli?
I don't really object to these trips, but I'm a little worried that we're getting away from the purpose of the bank and the whole reason we've got into doing this in the first place. This means Smithsonian trips, art museum trips, the aquarium, younger grades go to these places. And I know that this is more targeted for these certain grades and things like that, but I just want to reiterate that part of the reason why we started all of this was to try to hopefully eliminate some of the redundancy. So, again, I'm not objecting, just kind of making an observation.
And that's good to have in the notes, and we can remind teachers when we communicate out the BCC notes of that information. I know we just had to sort of turn down a trip that didn't even get here because of that very thing. So you're right that we do need to be mindful of that. Thank you for bringing that up.
One of the things that we discussed at our planning meeting, agenda planning meeting, is taking a look at the entire bank. Maybe this summer we have a small task force. And just reviewing the entire bank and making sure it makes sense and it's meeting our purposes. Yes?
Will the grade 5 students this year, where will they be going to the visitation for their 6th grade? So, in the past, they come to middle school.
We're going to take them on a mud tour over to 6th grade.
So, is this in existence this year? Are we expecting 5th grade students coming? That's not a trip this year.
Transition camp is okay.
Any other questions? All right, board, we're going to move that forward unless I hear it otherwise. All right, we are on schedule, and that concludes this portion of our meeting. So, Dr. McNeil, the rest is yours.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. Program information, we start with our K-8 math program update. So we have Mrs. Sullivan, our math curriculum leader, Kelly Byrne, our math supervisor.
Dr. McNeil?
sorry. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, my bad. I'm sorry. Public info. So sorry. Of course. Sorry. No. Mr. P. Step forward.
Hi, my name is Pia DeSanto from Upper Euclid. I don't know if people had a chance to read today's Daily Local, but in the editorial section, there was an article in there about a young girl at Springford High School, 17 years old, who was killed by her 16-year-old. They were trying to figure out if it was a boyfriend or an obsessive relationship from Perkiomenville. My question is that I didn't know if at the high school level we're looking at healthy relationship awareness training as part of the curriculum there. I realize it's not a state mandate. However, in light of how intense relationships seem to be getting, especially with social media, I'm wondering if we're going to be looking at that and bringing that into our curriculum in the future. Second, on an unrelated note, I'd also like to really compliment our music program and our band program in particular. The honors band is coming up. There's an honors band this evening with 5th graders all coming together from across the district. The 8th grade band will be a combination of the 2 middle schools, and then there's also the high school honors band. But I just wanted to say it's such a wonderful idea to find ways of bringing our kids together from all over the district in one particular venue. We do it with music. We do it in the indoor drum line. We also do it with the marching band. And we also do it with rugby. And I mentioned to Mr. Malby the possibility maybe of doing an intramural rugby program up at the 6th grade center, since that brings everybody together. And again, rugby in the upper grades also brings kids together.
Thank you. Any other public input?
If I can, I was doing a walk for the city today, and I walked into Michelle Pascal, and she was doing an activity with her classes that directly addressed healthy relationships. Gave examples of unhealthy and healthy relationships. I don't know if it's in a curriculum document, but I can say that it is being addressed.
Recently, I contacted Crime Victims, and they do have a presentation on healthy relationships, and we have been in dialogue right now. At least we have 2 interns who are looking into not only a mini bullying behavior and wellness, but in our 10th grade curriculum. Of course, we have to talk to our East West and STEM principals. We are looking into having that curriculum, and that is, at least for this year, into our health curriculum, and taking a look at that response. Since we don't have our principal approval yet until we have our information for them, but I did speak to Crime Victims last week, and we are in agreement with you as the counseling staff that we need to look at a lot of relationship issues. Thank you.
Okay, program information. So our math folks, Karen and Kelly.
First of all, that half day of professional development that happened on Monday, February 17th, K through 2 and 3 through 5 did something different than each other because of the fact that 3 through 5 was also having a full day of additional training that week. So K through 2 worked on differentiated instruction overview. There seemed to be a little misunderstanding between our understanding of what differentiated instruction looked like versus what differentiated instruction in math and focus looks like. So we needed to learn a little bit more about that. And since we're using common terminology, we definitely need to have a more common definition of what that word meant. So K through 2 worked on opportunities for differentiated instruction throughout the lesson, during whole group, guided practice and less practice activities, which is students' independent work. A lot of the differentiated instruction that happens within the Math and Focus program starts already in the whole group instruction, and it deals a lot with questioning. How do we question different levels of students differently? The students are all doing the same activities, they're all doing the same group activity and guided practice, but the questioning from the teacher is what differentiates the learning for the student. So what do the high flyers need and get them to think differently and deeply, and how do we scaffold for the students who are struggling a little bit? The activities for each type of learning during guided practice, students can work in pairs, they can work in trios, quads, while the teacher is working then with those students who need that little bit of extra help in a small group to help them with learning more about the conceptual learning of the content. And then students move into independent or small group work during independent work time. And that's the students who are ready, give me more, we get them starting independent work, whether that's the workbook or whatever it might be. And for those students who still need extra help, we might be working on the reteach activities at that time. K-2 teachers also learn a bit more about lesson planning. The trainers gave the teachers 5 questions for lesson planning. And then they worked on applying, how do they apply those 5 questions to lesson planning. And they also worked on an activity which got them more familiar with Think Central, which is a scavenger hunt, to let them know exactly what is available in there so when they do their lesson planning, what can they pull from Think Central. While the K-2 was doing that, 3 through 5 worked more on bar modeling that day. Several teachers had expressed during their training feedback surveys that they would like more bar modeling training. I mean, you could literally take a course on bar modeling and still not know everything about bar modeling. So we've been getting in bits and pieces and little doses as we go. Grade 3 worked on multi-step PSSA-like problems. So how can we help students now, even using bar modeling, to get more prepared for testing? Grade 4 worked on fractions, and grade 5 worked on fractions and decimals. The trainer for the 1 grade level did give teachers some posters, modeling posters that can be put in their rooms, and those have been shared with teachers. The teachers at 3rd grade thought that those would be very helpful. So we shared them with basically everybody, but 2 through 5 who would benefit most, because that's where bar modeling starts in 2nd grade. The additional day of professional development also happened that week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for grades 3, 4, and 6. At that time, they were given the differentiation overview so that they could start planning. And then basically the rest of the day, once we got to that and questioning activities, they got to work with their colleagues either in their buildings and or across the school district. They worked again on the 5 questions for lesson planning. How do you apply that? They also worked on Think Central and the scavenger hunt. If they needed, it was differentiated if they needed to work on that or not, as they felt their familiarity with Think Central and what they needed to do. They had lots of time to map out the upcoming weeks of lessons and create lesson plans with their colleagues and to collaborate with each other, as well as the facilitator was here to be the expert as to how to do this and answer all of their questions. Teachers' comments from that day, just to mention a few, they like getting time to plan as a grade level was beneficial. They're hoping to get more such time. The list of the questions that were compiled was very useful in improving teachers' questioning techniques. Making the Smartboard files with all the grade levels, with all the lesson components, would be very beneficial. That is a Downingtown idea, to take all of the things on Think Central that teachers have access to and put them in a Smartboard file so that teachers can access them more easily. At this point, what the teachers have to do is close the application to open the other application. This way it's just in one file and they can open it as they need it and not have to close the others. They're still working on getting students to think and persevere. I mean, that's kind of hard. That's a habit of mine. We're just gradually changing with students. All students is you can't just give up. When you see a work problem, you can't just stop and say you don't know how to do it. You have to persevere and you have to work through it. We're still struggling a bit with differentiating the classroom. And now that we know what to do, it'll be more likely that we're doing what we're supposed to do and making that happen. The other thing that's been a very hot topic across the district of math is the aides that we hired, or the supplemental programs at the elementary level. The training for the aides has been completed. Due to the weather, that took longer than we had planned. One school we planned 4 different times, and finally got that training finished last Friday, which was awesome. The aides seemed to be very appreciative of the training and the opportunity to learn more about math and math in focus. They were especially interested in the number bonds and the bar modeling, because we see a lot of that happening in the classrooms and just aren't really sure what that is, and without some kind of training, they were feeling not very equipped to help students with that. Some of the aides have been here since the beginning of the year. They just were given additional answers, and they feel that the children are getting better and better with the new mathematics program, and they see that kids are liking it. They themselves are learning math in a different way that they find is very enjoyable, and they think that the content is making a lot of sense to them, which is exciting. It was interesting from the aides' perspective to hear that they are seeing the progression of what students need to learn. Because they're in different classrooms all day. They're not with 3rd grade all day. They're not with 5th grade all day. They're with a variety of grade levels. So they're really beginning to see, you know, in 5th grade you do this. So yeah, I understand. In 3rd grade we need to do that. In 4th grade we did that. So they're seeing that progression. They had very positive comments to share with their principals and teachers, even after spending several hours with me. We asked the teachers, what are the aides doing to support your children in the classroom? They're helping children work independently while the teacher works with small groups who need that extra reteach time. They're working with small, flexible groups of students after the teacher has presented the concept. They're providing additional support to individual students who need some extra time to learn. From students pre-test, teachers can tell what prerequisite skills students need help with, and the aides are able to help with that. They're working with students to become more fact fluent. A lot of the aides asked about fact fluency. They still see kids struggling in fact fluency, and I did show them a resource within the program that comes in the teacher's kit that teaches fact fluency different, because it's not about memorizing your facts anymore. You really need to know your facts, not just memorize them. They're helping students who miss school. When you miss a day of school in this program, it's a little tedious to make it up because you really missed something, you missed the conceptual learning. The next day, we're not necessarily going back to that, so the aides are helping with that. They're also working with the Sparklers to do enrichment. The one trainer who was here for the half day called the brighter kids the Sparklers, so we call them the Sparklers. So the aides are helping with enrichment. They're also working with targeted students who are struggling to master content. They help at primary grades and the intermediate grades, but are definitely helping more so at intermediate. Sometimes they have a specific child to work with, sometimes they have a group of children to work with, or they go around the room and just help students as needed. They are working with students on specific study island benchmark items. Here again, we can read those reports. They're reviewing homework assignments with students who are struggling, and some of them are working with ESL students. When asked how things are going, from principals, teachers, the aides, they said that they felt that the students are very appreciative of the aides' support. They're very responsive to the aides' help. It's not like they're bashful or shy for asking for help when the aide comes to help them. They appreciate the help. They seem to be comfortable asking for that help. More students are getting individual help or extra time within a small group because the aides are there for support. The aides have been well received by teachers and students. They have been very positive about the additional support and include the aides in their lessons with students, so they have something for the aides to do. They're getting extra support it's helping the students increase their confidence, and it's improving their understanding of math. It was interesting from the one aide that she reported that it's very exciting to see the kiddos arrive at the same answers in more than one way. The aides during the training were really interested to see, and when you do bar modeling, some kids will solve problems a different way and still get the same answer. We heard from aides themselves that they feel things are going well and that they are learning mathematics on top of it, which was very exciting. Many of them have commented that they wish they had learned this way and had been taught math as children this way. And the teachers reported feeling fortunate and very thankful to have this additional support.
Mrs. Byrne, do we have any comments from the teachers at all, or any of the grade level leaders interested in sharing information about the program? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Egan.
You're welcome. I had surveyed some of the building leaders in third grade and passed the information on to Kelly. So just so we all understand, it's different in every building. So not every teacher has an aide. So this is all fabulous. Like, I don't have an aide in my room, so I'm not getting the benefits that another teacher might. So I'm happy that everybody was reporting positive things and just the different ways that the aides are being used from struggling to enrichment, one-on-one to small groups. So.
And some of that adjustment principles, correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with the timing of when support was provided. So you already had folks in place, and it was difficult to adjust schedules so that every teacher could get support, or maybe it's just the amount of support, I'm not quite sure, but it is the case that in some places, not every teacher, but the support had to be targeted for whatever reason because of the timing of the support that was provided. I don't know if any of the elementary principals would care to speak to that point or not.
I wasn't saying it in a negative way, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we all.
That everybody understood that not every teacher has aid support, yes. Dr. Wallace?
In our school, we based it on the data. So in grades 3 through 5, we looked at study island data, and the classroom that had the lowest scores was the classroom that got the support. Our feeling was, if you spread it amongst everyone, how much benefit are you really getting? And since we had a limited amount to work with, we thought that was the best approach going forward. The scheduling, yes, that's part of it, but in our case, it was more looking at where we could get the most benefit about
The data as well. Yes, that makes sense. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bertoni.
No, I just, it's like with any program, I know there's pitfalls, but I still continue to have concern about the differentiation and the struggles that teachers have. You know, I go back to reading, you can do groups and I'm not a teacher, so maybe I'm 100% off, but you know, children can read at the level that they're in for a short period of time by themselves. Children cannot teach themselves math and necessarily correctly. And I'm still very concerned that teachers, if they have this wide range in a classroom, how they're able to enrich those that have already got the concept and still work with the students that are struggling and meeting the needs of even the middle child. It just seems to me a very difficult task. And if the aids are not available to all teachers, we're basically saying, all right, if you're struggling the most, you get help, and the rest have to kind of muddle along. I'm just perplexed by it, especially, you know, we just added teachers to the high school for remediation and the 180 program for the middle school for remediation. And, you know, it all starts in the elementary school. So I'm really having a hard time with this. I do appreciate what's been done so far, but I think we just need a bigger philosophical discussion of how to target our children that start struggling at a very young age.
And to that point, Mrs. Bertoni, Mrs. Byrne alluded to the fact that we were defining differentiation differently. And at the series of professional developments in February, just a couple of weeks ago, the teachers were very clear about what they meant. And what they mean is that they have such a wide range of needs in their classrooms that they are unable to meet that wide range. So it's not about not knowing how to teach in small groups, or it's not about knowing the math. It's about the levels of the wide range, I shouldn't say levels, but such a wide range of needs. So to that point, when you say critical conversations, we are, now that we have that information defined, and it seems ludicrous to say it's taken this long for the teachers to get across what they were actually talking about, that we are having those critical conversations as an admin team, and then we will be having some, hopefully some suggested solutions to the teachers' struggles in that regard. And probably the issue is more critical at the upper grades because the gaps are so wide. So the program expects a certain level of mathematical knowledge and understanding. And when children not only don't have that knowledge and understanding at that grade level, but they're operating at a maybe 2-3 year deficit of mathematical knowledge, that creates a real problem for the classroom teacher. So we are on it, so to speak.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sullivan, middle level.
Okay. All right, at the middle level, we're moving along. I think both the students and the teachers are becoming more comfortable and confident with the program. Just a personal experience I had the other day in my algebra class, watching the kids struggle with algebra tiles to factor polynomials. I was like, they're never going to be able to do this. This isn't going to work. And by the end of the period, there were light bulbs going off all over the room. And it was, I got it. No, I got it. I can show you. And they were all over the place. So the activities are wonderful, and the kids are getting better at at persevering through them and staying with the task at hand. Our last professional development, according to most of the teachers that I spoke to, everyone seemed to feel it was the best of the series. We concentrated on Math Practice 3, which was constructing viable arguments and critiquing others' arguments. The trainer we had was a different trainer, and she really modeled it for us. She would have teachers explaining their answer to something and then challenging their argument and saying, this is how you do it with kids, and was really using us as students in the classroom, asking us to go ahead and say something wrong so she could critique it and have an argument with us back and forth. We spent a lot of time solving problems by bar modeling, problems at our own level by bar modeling, because we know the students are going to be coming to us with that background, and so it's something we want to be able to tie into, and we haven't had much experience with. So we spend a good deal of time doing that. We did some vertical teaming, facilitated by the trainer, looking at what each grade level needed from the prior grade level, and then we did some work by grade level. We are still struggling with the differentiation, having a wide range of students in the classroom, and we're currently struggling to fill in all the gaps before our PSSA testing occurs, because we know there's been information that with the changeover to the Common Core hasn't been accounted for these students. So we're trying to fill that in with warm-ups. We're trying to fill it in using PSSA released items in the classroom, and that's probably our biggest concern right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Questions? At Curriculum Council, wouldn't mind too much. I'd like to jump down to the high school credit recovery proposal and come back to the other two items that I will be reporting on. So high school credit recovery, as you may or may not know, another part of the high school's performance profile is graduation rate and graduation cohort data. So not only do we have to graduate students, but we have to graduate them in 4 years. So 9th graders come to us, we need to graduate them 4 years later. Sometimes we get students into our system who come to us with a credit deficit. So our charge is to graduate those students as well in 4 years. So part of what Mrs. Whalen would like to describe in detail to us is a program that would help our current seniors, and then if there is room, we would offer this to the juniors, a program where they would have support from our own teachers through a remediation so that they could actually have sufficient credits to graduate on time. That's the notion of this credit recovery, having sufficient credits to graduate on time. Mrs. Whalen?
Thank you, Dr. McNeil. So the assistant principals at East and West, one of our common goals was high school graduation rate, and so within that, we were studying and looking at the students who were credit deficient who wouldn't graduate on time. And as Dr. McNeil said, some of that comes from students who we've had since 9th grade that have not passed a class, but others are students who arrived in 10th grade and 11th grade that we haven't worked with before, but they are credit deficient. And so it is our charge to figure out a way to get them to graduate on time. So what we came up with was, for this year, is an after-school program for students from East and West, using packets that we would purchase through, what are the two companies, Edgeseer and Keystone Remediation, for the students to work on after school. We would have 2 staff members at East and 2 at West, depending on the need, to work with these students, to help guide them in the content areas they need. Almost everyone who needs remediation needs an English credit. Some need more than 1 credit, English in an Algebra 1 or English in a 10th grade history class. So they would help guide them, plan for their work for after school, set goals, short-term goals and long-term goals.
There is no summer school.
Right.
Oh, not anymore?
It's alternative credit.
Oh, okay, and then, my second question was, if a student, for some reason, did poorly in a class, and that's the reason they need this, will they pack it, which is, I would imagine, a lot of writing? Is that the best way to go about it? Or can you define the packet more?
Well, it depends on the subject. Is it a lot of writing? It's definitely not, so for an English comparison, it's definitely not as much writing to what an English class you would have in the class. But remember, they've been through that entire year. Okay. So is it a complete, it's not going to be something that you would do in lieu of, it's in addition to it. They've not passed the class, you know, they're in danger of not graduating on time. English, you need 4 years at the high school level, history, as Mrs. Whalen said, so you know, they wouldn't be a replacement, it's just to remediate that credit. Principals, if you want to do it as well.
Mrs. Simonelli?
I'm assuming that this isn't coming to the board for any action, that this is coming out of your building budget to pay for the staff people to stay after school?
Coming out of the curriculum budget.
Coming out of curriculum. And about how many kids do we think this is going to
At least we think we have 13 seniors who will participate. And again, if we have room, we would like to include juniors, who that way they can start their senior year with their credits they need and then just work on their senior year courses.
Tony, if you could scroll up, I guess it is, we're estimating 26 students and
13 students is west, at west as well.
right.
That would be.
Keep going to the bottom of that. There you go. Keep going a little more. Right there. That's our estimate. Mrs. Weiss?
Is there a cost per student, or is that paid for by the school?
Plan now is, it's coming through the curriculum budgets.
So the cost per student is for the packet. So the providers have packets of content that they provide for a fee. And that's what the 195 is.
So is the student paying that fee?
No, the student does not pay that fee. Thank you. Now, moving on, the next page, we talk about taking a look at our own curriculum and somehow modifying it so that we could provide students what we think would be a better experience with our curriculum. But we haven't done that to this point in time. But moving forward, that's what we would like to do. Mrs. Grant.
Are you feeling that it's likely that these 26 kids are going to be willing to stay after school? What, is there going to be some kind of a mandatory thing? I would imagine a lot of them were.
It's difficult to say, to make it mandatory. They want to graduate, and ultimately that's what we're looking at. If we look at our graduation rate from last year, was 95.27. We're offering this to 3.3 the students. So we're hitting that gap right there. We're trying to address it. The students that last year fell short. We're seeing the same thing, both high schools and children.
And we've been meeting with students who are at risk for not graduating. The counselors have a graduation plan for them, and I've been meeting with them also with the families to explain this option. And so there has been buy-in. I talked to one student today who's already rearranged his work schedule if we go forward with this, so he's available on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think they're taking it pretty serious. All of a sudden, it's in their face that they may not graduate.
But they can have the packets even without knowing that the after-school instruction?
Sure.
We would prefer that they work on the packet with us after school. These are students that haven't completed what they needed in other years. So if a student's very motivated and they say after a few sessions, and we watch them work, and they say, can I take this home and knock some of this out? There's a good possibility, or if they want to do it in a learning support class earlier in the day, or there's another place they can work on it. But overall, we would prefer to control it so that we're sure they do the work and they're working with teachers to do.
62% of the students are last to identify our IEP students. And of the 38, we offered PTEs too, and for whatever reason the family didn't accept. So these are students that are not typically doing well on their own and have learning.
Mrs. Cranny, we did have a very lengthy conversation about the after-school, providing this service after school, because these are children who are disconnected from school, and do they really want to stay at school longer? But right now, that is our option. So our thinking was that this is a better option than doing nothing. I mean, in the past, what we had done was to send these packets to the student's home. Most recently, we had a student say he didn't receive the packet, so trying to control that in some way by having the packets come to the school, teachers work with the students, seems to be taking a step in the right direction. And then we do need to take a look at an in-school option, if it is indeed an option with the high school schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Farrell, Mrs. Whalen. I'm going to come to the front for the next segment. I guess I don't need this, but the next thing was the Literacy Task Force update and the implementation of core resources. But if I don't get to speak to that, it is a Word doc in the scrolling agenda. But I would like to speak to the ESEA Fed report document. Okay, I'm just going to drop it. I wanted to bring this to Curriculum Council's attention because it's kind of a buried piece of data that not many people know about. You know about the Elementary Secondary Education Act, No Child Left Behind. There's a reauthorization of that act back when Lyndon Johnson was president, and it's reauthorized every so many years. Well, the state of Pennsylvania, not being as progressive as some other states, but last summer had its waiver approved in August for federal reporting. So we have state reporting, the school performance profile. We also have federal reporting for federal monies and federal accountability. Remember when we had AYP and everybody was supposed to reach 100% proficiency in the year that we're in, 2014, right? Well, states applied for waivers away from that accountability measure. So the state of Pennsylvania applied for a waiver as well. It was just approved last August of 13. So this website, and anybody can get there if you go to eseafedreport.com, it will take you here where you can see required federal reporting measures. And what we'll see, I just want to take you through the tabs up here so you can see what's on the website, and then just quickly go to Downingtown where you can see a report on the district and the schools in the district in terms of federal accountability. Okay? So we're home here. Very important that it talks about Title I, because those are the monies that we get through the federal government, the Title monies. We have 4 schools in our district that are designated as Title I, and they're 4 elementary schools. So that's Beaver Creek, Bradford Heights, East Ward, and Lionville Elementary. One important piece of information on this home page is what you see here, the N size. The number, for those of you who aren't educators, we used to have to report only when we had 30 or 40 students or more in a group. Now we need to report if there are 11 or more students. So that's a considerable difference in reporting. When you hear on school performance profile data that we have historically underperforming groups, our English language learners, our students who are economically disadvantaged, our students with IEPs, we count those numbers if we have 11 or more students that fit that category, not 40. So that's something significant here. And you see what goes into this federal reporting: performance, attendance, graduation, and participation. This page gives you information about Title I designations and what schools are designated in the district as Title I. We have one school in our Title I, among our 4 Title I schools, who has received the designation of a Reward High Achievement School, and that's Bradford Heights Elementary School. So kudos to Dr. Solon and his team. Our other schools are undesignated because they don't fit in any of these other categories. Now, each of these, I would suggest that if you visit the site, I don't know that we have time today, but you want to go in to look at the annual measurable objectives that are here so that you can see what it is what calculations are going into any data that's reported here. So you have participation rate, and you see that it's 95%. That's what you have to get the benefit of that particular rate of participation. This FAQ is very, very valuable. So you have what is the purpose, all the FAQs, if you just click on one, you see what the others tell you. So you see that it's all about the waiver that Pennsylvania applied for. And there is state accountability, but there's also district accountability, or federal accountability. When you look at school performance profile, everybody was looking for, well, what about the district? Well, that's a school designation, the school performance profile. This accountability is federal accountability that does report district data. Soon, we will have a district performance profile. That is coming. The state is in the, has in the works, taking all data that schools feed into the school performance profile and using all of that data to come up with a district performance profile. They're calling it a district school performance profile because they're treating districts like schools, as though all of the children were part of one big school called Downingtown Area School District, if that makes sense. So that will be something different in terms of state reporting. This is federal reporting. So here you see the designations for the various schools in Title I categories. Depending on the criteria of their performance, they would get these designations. Right? So as I said, Bradford Heights is a high achievement reward school. And you can go, look at all these little charts and see how many schools. Here you have Title I schools that are reward high achievement, that little piece of the pie. So you feel really, really good that you have a school in the district that has that designation. And, well, so these are the reporting measures for the state reporting. This is how the state did on this federal reporting measures. Now, if we want to go to the district, I'll tell you the better thing to do than to go to the intermediate unit is to go right to Downingtown. Okay, when you just search for Downingtown, you get all the schools come up. So you can see that The schools are rated by their category, and anything that says not applicable means applicable, they're not a Title I school. If it says no designation, that means they didn't fit into any of the categories of achievement for Title I schools. And so you see that Bradford Heights is the only school that had a designation as a reward school. And then, if you want to see how the district did, you just click on Downingtown Area School District. And for those who used to go onto the AYPE metric site, this looks very similar to that report. And so it will tell you all the measures, how the district did, how the state did. There's the 4-year average for graduation, as the district did and the state did, because the charge is to do at least as well as the state. That is the goal. If you don't do at least as well as the state, then that's the gap you have to fill. 50% of the difference between where you are and 100 over the next 6 years. That's kind of convoluted, I think, but this report gives you all the district results in every tested area, as well as in the graduation rate, participation, etc. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because it took me forever and a day to get the information out of the state about what about federal accountability and where do we find that information. So I hope this is helpful.
So one last point, Dr. McNeil.
Yes.
Dr. Dumaresque, the Secretary of Ed, had asked to meet with 11 principals in the Downingtown School District over this, because in 11 schools we have achieved above the 90th percentile. And that means 11 of 15 Downingtown schools get a banner. You remember the Keystone that we used to get? I used to call that the lube oil and filter plaque, the state inspections plaque. Now they give us a nice, they give us a nice banner, and they say that we're Governor Award winners. And Dr. Dumaresque wanted to come the week that we had all the snow. And I said, maybe it's not a good week this week. Why don't you come back in the spring? And the people at the state said we'd be happy to do that. So I'll be gathering 11 principals, and we'll meet at a building. And I think the Secretary of Ed is going to come down and say nice job. So it's great to Downingtown, where we've got 11 schools that can meet that criteria. Most schools this size, just a handful, that hit that 90th criteria. So it's all based on this, Linda, and congratulations to everyone in the room.
Certainly is a team effort. Thank you, Dr. Mussolini. Okay, we have a few minutes, so I think we might finish. I just wanted to update Curriculum Council as to where we are with curriculum writing for ELA, as well as the implementation of resources. So clearly, I had to update a couple of these dates. I met with Mrs. Scheip, our ELA curriculum leader, and she said to me, oh no, Dr. McNeil, we're meeting on the 12th with the high school. So the high school will write curriculum on March 12th, 27th, and 28th. The elementary, sorry, K4, I think this is 4.2, 4.3, and 4.7, right? Okay, so I must not have had my caffeine the morning I put this together. And then 5th grade is working with the middle level because the dates in PSSA shifted back. 5th grade cannot write curriculum on a writing PSSA date. So 5th grade will be writing with middle school, which I think might be a good thing. The implementation. I put on this chart what we know so far so that everybody is clear with what I know. Right now, we do have a March date. My goal for meeting with parents is that we are rolling out resources at the elementary level a little differently. And I want parents to hear how it is we'll be rolling this out and get their suggestions for what kind of communication would be important for parents. What do you need to know as a parent so that you feel comfortable that your child, even though they might not have a teacher who is rolling out the Wonders Reading Program, that your child will be getting a challenging reading curriculum. Excuse me. So we're meeting on March 19th. We have a date, and I did get some parents, I think, who are willing to serve, so that will be great. We'll be meeting, I gave them 3 times to meet, so we'll see which time suits folks. And then we want to bring the resources for approval to BCC in April. So we're going to be recommending the Wonders Reading Program at the elementary level. We're recommending the Holt Collections Literature Program at 6 to 9. And in 9-12, we have a resource from Bedford St. Martin, is that correct, Mrs. Scheit? That didn't make the cut here on the list, but it will be on the April 1st BCC. And then we're looking, school board members, to have that approved at the full board meeting on that second Wednesday in April. I have been meeting with business office. Mike DeAngelis has been part of conversation with vendors, so we feel comfortable that we've dotted I's and crossed T's with these proposals. Then we're going to be taking a look at what this looks like to get folks some professional development. The Harcourt Houghton Mifflin people, or Houghton Mifflin Harcourt people, are the publishers of the Holt collection. So we're looking to see if we can do something with that resource that last early dismissal day for the teachers in grades 6 to 12. At the elementary level, it's looking like principals will get an overview in May. I want to meet with the teachers who are offering to pioneer. You know, we're not really piloting because we've decided on a program, so we're going to have a group of first implementers that we call pioneers. So we want to get them professional development, but I want to meet with those teachers to talk with them about dates and what this looks like, especially the August date. I'm just twixt and tween about what's the better choice for teachers, knowing that you come back and you hit the wall with so many things. So what's a better choice for you? And then we're looking at 1 day a month from September through March, April. Actually, the vendors are asking for a half day per month. So we would do something like K2 in the morning, 3-5 in the afternoon for professional development. And then the idea is to get feedback from teachers about the quality and the content of that professional development before we turn it around to all staff. So then next year, May, June, everybody's in the midst of PD, and I guess we'll just depend on our pioneer group to help us plan a really robust, meaningful professional development for all staff. The 6-9 teachers, the core resource, we're looking at them not only having a May date, but also a half day in August, because we really want to give teachers professional development in the curriculum. I mean, one of our very strong stances is that our curriculum drives what we do, what we instruct. So the resource, while we need a core resource to maintain consistency through a district, especially our size, we want to make sure that teachers have the flexibility, in addition to the core resource, to have supplemental resources to use. So our curriculum will be a central focus of PD next year for all staff. So I have one last thing in 2 minutes. Okay. Hopefully everybody knows that we backed up the PSSA test. Dr. Dumares, that Dr. Mussolini mentioned, who was the acting Secretary of Education, gave districts the option of pushing back PSSA testing 1 week. So we jumped on that opportunity, knowing that we had missed a number of instructional days. So we sent this calendar, it's posted, we sent it out to parents with a letter about the PSSA. We also included Dr. Dumares's email in that notification to parents that this just wasn't a whim that we decided to do this, but knowing that we missed so much instructional time, we thought it was the only option we had really was to push the dates back. Right now, we missed, folks have to be trained to administer the PSSA and the Keystones, so principals are taking care of that online training in their buildings. We have to do an online training the state requires, and we also have to do a district training that everybody will deliver, everybody being the building level administrators and school assessment coordinators, to anyone who is administering or is in the room when the PSSA or Keystone is administered. Everyone must be tested and must be trained and sign a test security certificate. Security is a big deal today, as we all know. The principals are on it. They got their materials, and right away they're finding the locked room that nobody accesses, making sure they got all their materials and that they're safely secured. So principals, thank you so much, as well as your school assessment coordinators. So March 19th is training day for the online training. Thankfully, that comes right before the PSSA. Lots of folks are taking the training ahead of time because Kelly and I get the notification. Principals will train in their buildings during faculty meeting time, and then it all rolls on March 24th. Okay? So I just wanted to update you that things had shifted a little bit with the assessment calendar. 3:32. Any questions? All right, thank you everyone. Meeting is adjourned. Safe traveling.